ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतीरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकलामह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामीनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We are reading from Canto 3, Chapter 21, Conversation between Manu and Kardama. So, Kardama Muni receives darshan of the Supreme Lord and is offering prayers to the Supreme Lord. Text 17. So, beautiful prayer. This is glorification of the Supreme Lord. In a very beautiful way, Kardama Muni is glorifying the Supreme Lord. We'll recite this one. लोकांश्च लोकानुगतान् पशुंश्च
लोकांश लोकानुगतान् पशूंश्च
हित्वा श्रियास्ते चरणात् पत्रम्
हित्वा श्रितास्ते चरणात् पत्रम्
परस्परं त्वद्गुणवादसीधु
परस्परं त्वद्गुणवादसीधु
पीयूषनिर्यापितदेहधर्माः
पीयूषनिर्यापितदेहधर्मः.
Translation.
However, persons who have given up stereotyped worldly affairs and the beastly followers of these affairs, and who have taken shelter of the umbrella of your lotus feet by drinking the intoxicating nectar of your qualities and activities in discussions with one another, can be freed from the primary necessities of the material body. Purport. After describing the necessities of married life, Kardama Muni asserts that marriage and other social affairs are stereotyped regulations for persons who are addicted to material sense enjoyment. The principle of animal life, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, are actually necessities of the body. But those who engage in transcendental Krishna consciousness, giving up all the stereotyped activities of this material world, are freed from social conventions. Conditioned souls are under the spell of material energy or eternal time, past, present, and future. But as soon as one engages in Krishna consciousness, he transcends the limits of past and present and becomes situated in the eternal activities of the soul. One has to act in terms of the Vedic injunctions in order to enjoy material life. But those who have taken to the devotional service of the Lord are not afraid of the regulations of this material world. Such devotees do not care for the conventions of material activities. They boldly take to that shelter which is like an umbrella against the sun of repeated birth and death. Constant transmigration of the soul from one body to another is the cause of suffering in material existence. This conditional life in material existence is called samsara. One may perform good work and take his birth in a very nice way, but the process under which birth and death a terrible fire. Shri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his prayer The spiritual master has described this samsara, or the repetition of birth and death, is compared to a forest fire. A forest fire takes place automatically, without anyone's endeavor, by the friction of dried wood, and no fire department or sympathetic person can extinguish it. The raging forest fire can be extinguished only when there is a constant downpour of water from a cloud. The cloud is compared to the mercy of the spiritual master. By the grace of the spiritual master, the cloud of the mercy of the personality of Godhead is brought in, and then only when the rains of Krishna consciousness fall can the fire of material existence be extinguished. This is also explained here. In order to find freedom from the stereotyped conditional life of material existence, one has to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, not in the manner in which the impersonalists indulge, but in devotional service, chanting and hearing of the activities of the Lord. Only then can one be freed from the actions and reactions of material existence. It is recommended here that one should give up the conditional life of his material world and the association of so called civilized human beings who are simply following, in a polished way, the same stereotype principle of eating, sleeping, defending, and mating. Chanting and hearing of the glories of the Lord is described here as, as Tvad Vada Sidhu. Only by drinking the nectar of chanting and hearing the pastimes of the Lord can one forget the intoxication of material existence. Hare Krishna.
Kardama Muni, he is praying that, my dear Lord, the persons who have given up the stereotype material worldly activities and their beastly followers of these affairs, and who have taken shelter of the umbrella of your lotus feet. And how they have taken shelter? How to take shelter of Krishna's lotus feet? By drinking the intoxicating nectar of qualities and activities in discussions with one another. So, this is how they have taken shelter, can be freed by the primary necessities of material body. So, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada describes that there are primary necessities of the material body. Ahara nidra bhayamaitunam cha samanyametat pashubhir narana. So this is samanya between pashu and narana. Therefore, it is called as beastly activities because these are the basic instincts. What differentiates the human life is dharmo hi tesham adhiko vishesho. So there are principles of animal life, and to the degree a human being, Prabhupada writes that, maybe engaged in a more sophisticated way in the stereotype worldly activities, still he remains the same. And Bhagavatam has a very special name for such a person, such a mindset, and that is called as Dvipada Pashu. Dvipada Pashu means the whole thing is like a Pashu, but only difference is that only two-legged Pashu, two-legged animal. So very strongly Bhagavatam describes somewhere else. Prabhupada says here that, but this can be overcome when one comes to transcendental Krishna consciousness. So currently the conditioned soul is acting under very strong, stringent material nature, right? And the material nature, along with time, the conditioned soul is involved in past, present, and future. But as soon as he engages in Krishna consciousness, he transcends the past and present. Because Krishna consciousness is the transcendental activity, it is not of this worldly activity, right? Golokera Premadhan, Harinama Sankirtan. So, this chanting of Hare Krishna, or the spiritual activity, is coming from the spiritual world, and it is not defined by the material laws or the material nature. And one is engaged in Krishna conscious activity, one will transcend one's past and future, and thus he will be engaged in devotional service. Further, Prabhupada says the soul is constantly transmigrating from one body to another. Now here, in one of the discussion, Acharyas explain, in fact, sometimes we say that, soul transmigrate from one body to another body every 7 years. Every 7 years, all the cells in the body, they are changed. But if you do the deeper understanding of that, the soul is spiritual in nature, body is completely material. And let us come to another point. Like whenever we see cinema are actually the steady images which go fast. You know the frequency of image rotation will be so fast that it appears to be animated, right? Similarly, it is said that the material body is always dead, but the living entity is moment after moment changing the material body, and the soul is constantly reflecting in that material body, and therefore it appears that material body has come alive. And thus this constant transmigration of the material body is called as samsara. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes his prayer, Samsara Davanada Lidhaloka. And this is like the forest fire. Prabhupada says the forest fire is not caused by anybody. It naturally happens. And it cannot be controlled by human endeavors. Recently, we had seen the Californian fire. Such a big country and such a prestigious area, that people had the flats, the bungalows there worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But when there was a forest fire, all they could do with very, very advanced technology is that, just tell them that leave the place, just save yourself. So the forest fire can be extinguished only by the incessant downpour from the cloud. And that downpour is compared to, what is that downpour? Tranaya karunya ghana ghanatva. By the grace of the spiritual master, the cloud of Krishna's mercy, the rains of Krishna's mercy, Krishna consciousness will fall, and thus the fire of material existence can be extinguished. Otherwise, samsara chakram parivartayeti. It's very, very difficult to cross over the samsara chakra, right? And Prabhupada says, therefore, it is recommended that a living entity takes on to the chanting and hearing the glories of the Lord. Tuvad gunavada sindhu, and which is compared to the umbrella and drinking the nectar of the pastimes and the qualities of the Supreme Lord. It's a very beautiful verse. So to the degree we are absorbed in hearing, reading Srimad Bhagavatam, chanting the holy names, to that degree, one can actually come out of the material existence. That doesn't mean to say that we have to stop performing our material activities, or one will become reckless, or one will become irresponsible in the material activities. But even while being responsible in the material activities, one will not have a satisfaction. And that satisfaction on the Atma level, one will completely receive when one engages in the nectarian pastimes. Samud, later Prahlad Maharaj talks about this. That Magna Chitta, he says. Magna Chitta means very deeply absorbed in reading and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. This is called as Magna Chitta. Text 18. Nate Jaraksha Brahmirajuresham Trayodasharam Trishatam Drashti Parva Shanyem Nanantas Chadiyatranami Karalastro Jagadachidhyadhavat. Translation.
Your wheel, which has 3 naves, rotates around the axis of the imperishable Brahman. It has 13 spokes, 360 joints, 6 rims, and numberless leaves carved upon it. Though its revolution cut short the lifespan of the entire creation, this wheel of tremendous velocity cannot touch the lifespan of the devotees of the Lord. Purport. The time factor cannot affect the span of the life of the devotees. In Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that a little execution of devotional service saves one from the greatest danger. The greatest danger is transmigration of the soul from one body to another, and only devotional service to the Lord can stop this process. It is stated in the Vedic literatures, Harim Vinana Mritim Taranti. Without the mercy of the Lord, one cannot stop the cycle of birth and death. In Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that only by understanding the transcendental nature of the Lord and his activities, his appearance and disappearance, one can stop the cycle of the death and go back to him. The time factor is divided into many fractions of moments, hours, months, years, periods, seasons, etc. All the divisions in this verse are determined according to the astronomical calculations of the Vedic literature. There are 6 seasons called Rutus, and there is the period of 4 months called Chaturmasya. 3 periods of 4 months complete 1 year. According to Vedic astronomical calculations, there are 13 months. The 13th month is called Adhika Masa or Malamasa and is added every third year. The time factor, however, cannot touch the lifespan of the devotees. In other words, it is stated that when the sun rises and sets, it takes away the life of all living entities. But it cannot take away the life of those who are engaged in devotional service. Time is compared here to a big wheel that has 360 joints, 6 rims in the shape of seasons, and numberless leaves in the shape of moments. It rotates on the eternal existence Brahman.
Narada Muni says, your wheel of time, it has 360 joints. So 360 joints are 360 days and nights. 6 rims, these are the 6 seasons, Shadrutu, and the numberless leaves in the shape of the moments. However, this wheel of tremendous velocity cannot touch the lifespan of the devotees of the Lord. The devotees of the Lord become Mrityunjay, they conquer the death. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that the time factor cannot affect the lifespan of the devotees. And Bhagavad Gita describes this, Swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate muhato bhayat. That by performing little activity, devotional service, one can be saved from the greatest danger. What this means? Does it mean that devotee doesn't die? No, that is not the point. Devotee doesn't come back to this material world. He is not caught up in the samsara chakra. That is very important. There is example of Ajamil. Ajamil saw the Yamaduta. So when will one see Yamaduta? Only at the time of death. And he just chanted Narayana, Narayana. And what happened? The Vishnudutas arrived, and there was a discussion between Yamadutas, Vishnudutas. Vishnudutas defeated Yamadutas. Yamadutas went back, and Ajamil got 12 more years. He became sane by hearing the discussion, by the very momentary association of the Vishnudutas. Left home, went to Haridwar. His age was 88. He got additional 12 years. He perfected his life, went back home, back to Godhead. Right. So this is little execution of devotional service can save one from the greatest danger. And this is how the time factor cannot affect the lifespan of a devotee. And therefore, bhakti is called as trayate mahato bhayat. Harim vina na smritim taranti. Without Lord's mercy, one cannot stop the cycle of birth and death. So Bhagavad Gita gives a very clear, very simple method of stopping the cycle of birth and death. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo vetti tatvatah tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti sorjuna. That the time factor is divided into different ways according to the astronomical calculation. And these calculations we have seen elaborately in the previous chapters when the 30 lava kshana is all being explained, and Prabhupada's very beautiful purports on the matter, energy, and the movement of the body in the space creating the time. Extremely beautiful purports. So largely there are 360 days, so there are 360 joints, 6 seasons, and the period of the 4 months is called as Chaturmasya, and there are such 3 Chaturmasya in 1 year. In the modern times we say 4 quarters in a year, but in the Vedic times it was 3 Chaturmasya in 1 year. 4 into 3 or 3 into 4, it is the same thing. And then there is Malamasa or Adhik Masa, which is 13th month added every third year. But all this time factor cannot touch the lifespan of a devotee. Because the devotee, what is the life of a devotee? Life of a devotee is devotional service. Right, beautiful point. Life of a devotee is devotional service. And devotional service is beyond time factor. And that means the lifespan of a devotee or the engagement of a devotee in devotional service cannot be touched by the time. And thus devotee, he transcends the time by performing the timeless devotional service. Text 19. एकस्वयं सन् जगतस्सृक्षया द्वितीययात्मानिकधियोगमायया सृजस्य दप्पास पुनर्ग्रसिष्यसे यथोर यथोर्नणाभिर्भगवन् स्वशक्तिभिः. Translation.
My dear Lord, you alone create the universes. O personality of Godhead, desiring to create these universes, you create them, maintain them, and again wind them up by your own energies, which are under the control of your second energy called Yogamaya. Just as this just as a spider creates a co- cobweb by its own energy and again winds it up. Purport. In this verse, two important words nullify the impersonalist theory that everything is God. Here, Kadar- Kardama says, O personality of Godhead, you are alone, but you have various energies. The example of the spider is very significant also. The spider is an individual living entity. By its energy, it creates the cobweb and plays on it. And whenever it likes, it winds up the cobweb, thus ending the play. When the cobweb is manufactured by the saliva of the spider does not become impersonal. Similarly, the creation and manifestation of the material or spiritual energy does not render the creator impersonal. Here, the very prayer suggests that God is sentient and can hear the prayers and fulfill the desires of the devotee. Therefore, he is Satchidananda Vigraha, the form of bliss, knowledge, and eternity. Hare Krishna.
Very, very amazing prayer. My dear Lord, you alone create the universe, and desiring to create this universe, you create them, maintain, and wind up the universes. Just as, now what a beautiful analogy here is given. Just as spider creates the cobweb by its own energy, saliva, and again winds it up. So here the Lord's creation is compared to the spider's creation. Now, if you go and say National Geographic and spiders creation, it has given rise to huge research. One is about the artistry that the spider will have. That is one thing. Second thing, the strength. Okay, there is entire these materials which are like anti-bullet materials. They are designed using the spider cobweb dynamics. That is called as the biomimetics. Biomimetics means imitating the happenings in the nature, in the biology, in the nature, and trying to generate some science out of that. Like we have ant colony optimization, bee colony optimization. These are the optimization techniques used to solve some very advanced optimization problems, or artificial neural networks, which is already happening in the nature. So artificial neural network is happening in our brain thing, and how it is happening is being mimicked to solve the optimization problem. So the spider's cobweb is like a phenomenal thing. Like when we see in the house and we get irritated by that. But what happens here? Prabhupada says, why the Lord is compared to the spider? Because spider creates the cobweb by his own energy. He doesn't take any help from outside. When we have to build a house, we will take brick from outside, sand from outside, cement from outside, and build our house. When spider creates the cobweb, the energy comes from within, the saliva, his own saliva, right? And Prabhupada says this example completely defeats the impersonal understanding, because people say, oh, when the Lord created the universe, the Lord was lost and only universe remained. So there are some stupid theories which keep on moving around. No, when the spider creates the cobweb, the spider exists and the cobweb also exists simultaneously. By creating the cobweb, the spider's existence is not lost. It is not that the God created universe and God got so exhausted that he just dismantled himself or dissolved himself in the universe. No, cobweb remains and spider remains. Individuality is retained simultaneously, right? So Prabhupada says the cobweb is manufactured by the saliva of the spider, and the spider does not become impersonal. Another thing is the manufacturing comes from within. So the material energy comes from the Supreme Lord, right? Sometimes people say, oh, Lord is spiritual, how the matter comes? No, matter comes from spirit. The modern understanding is spirit comes from matter, that some amino acids will mix together and the life evolves, Darwin's. No, matter comes from spirit, and it is not spirit coming from the matter. And whenever the activity of the spider is over, the spider will take away his own saliva. And similarly, the Lord takes away when the pralaya kala is there, when he inhales Mahavishnu, everything goes within. And therefore, the Lord is compared here as very dexterous spider. Okay. So whenever next time you see spider, you have another reason to glorify the Supreme Lord. Text 20. Naitat बताधिष्पदं तवेप्सितं यन्माययानस्तनुषे भूतसूक्ष्मम् अनुग्रहायास्त्वपि यर्हि मायया लसत्तुलस्या भगवान् विलिक्षितः. Translation?
Translation: My dear Lord, although it is not your desire, you manifest this creation of gross and subtle elements just for our sensual satisfaction. Let your causeless mercy be upon us, for you have appeared before us in your eternal form, adorned with a splendid wreath of tulsi leaves. Purport: It is clearly stated here that the material world is not created by the personal will of the Supreme Lord. It is created by his external energy because the living entities want to enjoy it. This material world is not created for those who do not want to enjoy sense gratification, who constantly remain in transcendental loving service, and who are eternally Krishna conscious. For them, the spiritual world is eternally existing and they enjoy there. Elsewhere, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that for those who have taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this material world is useless because this material world is full of danger at every step. It is not meant for the devotees, but for living entities who want to lord it over the material energy at their own risk. Krishna is so kind that he allows the sense enjoying living entities a separate world created by him to enjoy as they like, yet at the same time, he appears in his personal form. The Lord unwillingly creates this material world, but he descends in his personal form or sends one of his reliable sons or a servant or a reliable author like Vyasadeva to give instruction. He himself also instructs in his speeches of Bhagavad Gita. This propaganda work goes on side by side with the creation to convince the misguided living entities who are rotting in this material world to come back to him and surrender unto him. Therefore, the last instruction of Bhagavad Gita is this: give up all your manufactured engagements in the material world and just surrender unto me. I shall protect you from all sinful reactions. Hare Krishna.
My dear Lord, Kardama says, although it is not your desire, you manifest this creation of gross and material elements. And even after manifesting this, which is not your desire, you have appeared before us in your eternal form, adorned with the beautiful tulsi leaves. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that it is clearly stated here that the material world creation is not the personal will of the Lord. It is like mother gets so many items and gets one chadi also she buys the chadi also from the market. Chadi means the danda, which will be, when the child makes a mistake, the mother will say, show your hand, and she will give big slapping on on his hand by the chadi. So the mother is buying that danda is not willingly she is buying, but it is required. Or when the state is constructing, the state is, there is a constructed city, it's a planned city. But within the planning of the city, there is a planning for prison also. And it is not very happily being planned. Oh, let's plan a prison there and let's, the torture some of the citizens there. No, it is unwillingly, but it has to be there. So material world, Prabhupada says, is created by the external energy, and it is not the desire or the will of the Lord that the living entity suffers in the material world. No. Lord wants living entity to be always happy in the spiritual world, eternally Krishna conscious. And therefore, the spiritual world is existing, and unlimited number of living entities are existing there and enjoying their life. And similarly, but few living entities, they are in the material world, which is a dangerous place at every step. So material world, there is a danger at every step. Now, citing this, we don't become irresponsible. But the point is, we do not build our house in the sense, that a devotee will be always very responsible in the material duties, but always look to transcend the material world. A classic example is Arjuna or the Pandavas. Prabhupada says somewhere in Bhagavatam it is confirmed. Samashritaye padapallavam mahat padam punya yasho murare. Bhavambadir vatsapadam parampadam padam padam yat vipadam natesham. That the material world is called as padam padam vipada. Right? Like, you just do years of saving and just go to enjoy somewhere at some place, and suddenly there is attack. The people are just enjoying some roller coaster or something like that. Material world, just imagine how many ways are there where a living entity can be troubled. So this world is a padam padam. There is a danger at every step. But that is not the case with the spiritual world. And therefore, Lord personally wants all the living entities in the spiritual world. He personally comes time to time, avataro hi asankhyanam, sends his reliable sons, his servants, his other incarnations like Vedavas and everyone. And there is a propaganda. What is the propaganda? The propaganda is that let the misguided living entities get introduced to the spiritual realm. They should know there is a place which is beyond this material world where they belong to. And therefore, Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada says, Lord gives the final call. Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam praja. Just surrender unto me. Give up all different types of religions and just surrender unto me. Aham tvam sarva papibhyo. I will take care of your sinful activities. Do not fear. Ma shuchah. And this is how the Lord gives a call to his. So Lord is missing the association of his parts and parcels, his own children in the spiritual world. And therefore he appears in the material world and gives direct darshan and upadesh to living entities. So we will conclude here and continue tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Prabhuji.
Prabhu.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhupada.
Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhupada.
Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Don't pram, Prabhuji.
Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Dandavad.